Close your eyes and breathe. Do you remember your first real love? Taking someone's hand in the woods and walking side by side? Do you remember picking up a leaf under the sunlight-dotted canopy, saying this leaf will soon die, but its image is forever? Do you remember your first heartbreak?
Something's changed, and I didn't know you're slipping away. Everything is strange. Please don't let go. Sleep away the day.
Remember the places, the car and the beach, the city lights, the raw nerves. There's a blank, aching space in those memories where someone used to be. That ache is normal. Were you alone in the car? You weren't alone at the beach. Time makes memories fuzzy, changes their shapes and intentions like expired film. Focus inward. Focus on those feelings and on those intentions. Can you let them go? Can you let yourself go on? Sayonara Wild Hearts is a rhythm game / visual album that takes the story of a heartbroken woman struggling to move past a breakup and expands it into a cosmic metaphysical drama. Several members of a divine arcana are hurt by death, and they send fragments of their broken hearts to create a heroine that should save them all. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a heartbroken woman's pain echoes through time, and she transforms into this masked heroine, falling through levels and fighting lovers symbolic of heartbreaks and breakups past. These characters represent figures of the arcana, but also previous romances for the heartbroken woman and aspects of herself and her relationships that she hasn't fully reckoned with. The arduous struggle of growth and reconciliation is blown up to massive proportions, representing how life-shattering and monumental breakups can feel in the moment. Each section begins with a short track, an ending romance, titled Heartbreak 1, Heartbreak 2, etc., followed by an introduction of one of the Arcana Heartbreakers. These chapters each culminate in a sort of boss stage, as the soundtrack goes from instrumental to fully voiced with original lyrics relating to the themes of the game. The music is poppy, beat-heavy, and danceable, but has a melancholic edge. It's like Grimes without all the techno-fascism, or Carly Rae Jepsen frowning. The game feels like crying while you're dancing in a throbbing neon club full of wolves and revving engines and pink fire. Did I mention there are giant swords, mecha wolves, sports cars, jets, and VR? Okay, cool. It pulls you in with the story of heartbreak and facing your past, but never forgets that you're here to have fun, too. It's a perfect mixture of bitter and sweet, helping you get that dour edge you crave while not letting you mire yourself in pity or catastrophizing. The frequent visual motifs of falling, of sharp turns, of the world falling out from underneath the player, or the environments quickly changing, capture those post-breakup feelings of isolation and uncertainty. What does your future hold now? What do you do when the rug has been pulled out from under you? The game wants you to acknowledge these feelings, but also recognize how cool it is to fence on top of a motorcycle, how thrilling it can be to find yourself again, even in the fallout of a broken heart. It's cathartic, fun, and touching. Each of the boss segments end with the masked heroine catching up to the Arcana figure and punching them, breaking their hearts to release the harmony they had stolen. The lyrics in each of these boss songs relate to different steps in the breakup process, from looking back at the last memory of a relationship before it ends, to the feelings of being without purpose or direction in the wake of a breakup. As the game comes to its final level, the player once again takes on the role of the broken-hearted woman. this time sans mask, she chases the previous protagonist, the masked heroine, around the levels as she puts on different costumes of the different Arcana figures you've fought. After you catch her, instead of punching her, this time you kiss her, a sign of forgiveness and acceptance. There's also a dragon involved at some point. The broken-hearted woman returns to her home a while later, her hair now longer as she has healed and found peace again. Punching your exes or your past self may feel like a good idea in the moment, but it's not usually the healthiest way to move forward. Letting go can be hard and it's scary. Even if things are uncertain and different ahead, the heartbroken woman is no longer tethered to her past, and she has the opportunity for new experiences and new growth ahead of her. Where Sayonara Wild Hearts takes heartbreak and shapes it into a metaphorical cosmic pop journey, another game takes the struggle to move forward and makes it the game's core mechanic. It's as frustrating and seemingly impossible as moving on feels in the moment, though it's not directly about breakups. Remember that change can be painful. Even good changes are intimidating at first. It can be like climbing a sheer cliff. But growth is not always linear. It doesn't always make sense in the moment. The important thing is that you keep moving. Your progress may be frustratingly small, but you are making progress just by trying. Someone out there hopes that you make it to the top. Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy is a game about climbing a mountain with a hammer.
In it, your task is simply to drag yourself up a mountain with a hammer.
It's also a meditation on frustration and challenge, on forward progress and failure.
There's no feeling more intense than starting over. Starting over is harder than starting up. If you're not ready for that, like if you've already had a bad day, then what you're about to go through might be too much.
While it doesn't explicitly refer to falling out of love, its themes relate deeply to the process of overcoming a hard breakup or similar tragic life event. You're stuck, you're starting over, and you feel ill-equipped for the journey ahead of you. Climbing a trash tower naked with only a hammer feels like a pretty apt metaphor for the vulnerable struggle to regain normalcy after a relationship has ended. The mechanics of the game physically mirror the inching, frustrating, crawling pace of self-improvement and growth, and it reminds us that change is not always straightforward. Sometimes you fall back down the weird assemblage of blocks and barrels. It's not the same for everyone, and it's not the same for you in each instance. But, the game says, if you keep trying, you'll get better. Throughout the game's challenges, you become closer with your only companion throughout this lonely hike, the voice of the narrator, Bennett himself, as he tells you about his game, design, and the digital age. As you climb higher, his speaking gets less academic and more intimate.
This gets more frightening each time you return.
Asking you questions about yourself and your motives.
Have you thought about who you are in this? Are you the man in the pot, Diogenes?
Any failure is frustrating, but you're not alone.
I give it to you with all my love.
Bennett is there to quote other writers and figures on failure or to otherwise sympathize with your fall.
The soul would have no rainbow had the eyes no tears. John Vance Cheney.
A lot of these quotes are not simply about failure, but are rather references to pain, sorrow, and unexplored possibilities. The pain in these quotes is more akin to that of a broken heart than to losing progress in a video game.
To live is to suffer. To survive is to find some meaning in the suffering. Friedrich Nietzsche. Better by far that you should forget and smile than you should remember and be sad. Christina Rossetti. Oh God, can I not grasp them with a tighter clasp? Can I not save one from the pitiless wave? Is all that we see or seem but a dream within a dream? Edgar Allan Poe.
In both the game and real life, healing takes time, patience, and practice. There are no shortcuts up the mountain. If you do reach the top, you're connected to a chat room with others who have made it to the top and may even receive a message from Foddy himself. Your reward for the onerous process of getting better and learning how to navigate a harsh world is direct human interaction.
It means a lot to me that you've come this far.
It's intimacy, it's bonding. You can relate to others who have been through what you have, who have also climbed this mountain, and maybe make some connections. Getting Over It asks its players to find meaning and maybe even new aspects of themselves in reflecting on their own pain and frustration. Breakups offer a similar period of self-reflection. In both cases, you're never really alone, but you are left to your own devices for the actual challenge of moving forward. In the game, as in life, there's always someone there to talk to you, but they can't actually help you over the mountain. Only you can do that.
There's no way left to go but up, and in a moment I'll shut up. But let me say, I'm glad you came.
The things they leave behind affect us. How did the fight in the car end? Memory haunts us, shaping our world into a dull gray blob. Did you get to the woods, or did you turn around? How long did you sit in the car? Another game that tackles romance and heartbreak in a mechanically unique way is 2018's mobile indie darling Florence. You play as the titular Florence Yo, a 25-year-old who is tired of the routine of her life. Her world is almost entirely devoid of color, and her job and activities are boring and unfulfilling. The game lets you symbolically perform some of these routines, such as brushing her teeth by sliding a brush back and forth, or decorating sailboat drawings from her childhood. The environments are drab, gray and blue, and the soundtrack is mostly piano-based, with a few other instruments such as woodwinds and brass occasionally accompanying it. One day, her attention is caught by a street musician playing a cello. The yellow notes float through the gray sky and draw her in physically. This is the first time the soundtrack includes cello, representing new opportunities and experiences in her life. This floating, magical experience is an analog for falling for someone, for the transformative joy and hope inherent in a new crush. She later meets and starts dating the cellist, named Krish, and the two hit it off. Throughout the process of getting to know each other, the player pieces together small puzzles in the shape of dialogue bubbles. The puzzles start out with 6 squared-off shapes, then, as the two become more comfortable, the pieces become softer and fewer, the puzzles now easier. When the two seem totally in sync, the speech bubbles are entirely one single piece, and the player just has to slide it into place. The music here blends piano and cello as the two grow closer. The mechanical elements of the gameplay become more fun and more rewarding as the two bond. Instead of swiping back and forth to watch Florence listlessly brush her teeth, you're shaking your phone to develop a Polaroid of a happy occasion. Writer's note here, don't actually shake a Polaroid in real life. It doesn't help and it might actually damage the photo, so please don't do that. The gameplay visually and mechanically mirrors falling in love, with effortless comfort and intimacy common early on in relationships. Small mechanics like these can be found throughout the game. Over time, Krish and Florence cook together, encourage each other to pursue their passions, and take trips around the city together. Krish buys her a painting set to help her rekindle her childhood passion for art. Their lives are full of music and color and happiness. As with all couples, though, they eventually have a disagreement. Here, the conversation puzzles go from relatively smooth to sharp, representing the painful turn in their relationship. The player has to put them together quickly or be overpowered by Krish's dialogue bubbles popping up. The puzzle here is more confrontational and competitive than the rest of the game, reflecting ways that arguments can evolve and heighten, dragging in other issues and ratcheting up the rhetoric and tension to match or overcome the other person. This is not the end for Florence and Krish, though, just a routine disagreement, and the two move in together shortly thereafter. During the move, the player is tasked with the very real job of unpacking Krish's belongings and making decisions about which items to display in the house and which to put into storage. The player could presumably leave every one of Florence's belongings in storage, all of Krish's in storage, or make compromises. I tried my best to split it evenly, but still, you can't really know which items are going to be important to whom. Maybe the owl statue I had Florence put away meant a lot to her, or maybe Krish would have to drag out his spices whenever he wanted to cook. Just as in real relationships, merging two lives together can be messy, and it requires a great deal of compromise and open communication. As the months pass, the two drift apart, both romantically and in the literal space on the screen, and the color drains from the scenes once more. Florence's art set gets buried under bills, paperwork, and other mundane daily detritus. Krish is unhappy with his cello work, which was once his passion. The two fight again and ultimately break up. Just as the player did when Krish moved in, only now in reverse, the player has to sort through the former couple's belongings and decide what Krish is taking with him as he moves out. The move-in had happened mere moments ago in the game, but I still couldn't remember which possessions were definitely Krish's and which ones were Florence's originally. Was the toaster hers? Was the coffee maker? Even after a brief period together, our lives begin to blend. In real life, after months, years with someone else, it's significantly harder to separate. Relationships and breakups are a series of negotiations that have no real easy answer. I have objects around my house that I know weren't originally mine. I'm sure there are others that once belonged to someone else, but I don't remember now. Maybe my brain has given me a false memory of buying it, or it's just making me forget its source because it's easier that way. It's a small kindness that our minds allow us to forget some of these small, sharp things, that our memories fade enough for us to not get stuck on the painful mementos. The final moments of the two together show Florence and Krish walking. Krish slowly lags behind and starts to fade as he nears the edge of the screen. The player can tap on Florence to temporarily halt her and let Krish catch up for a second, but Florence keeps walking and Krish keeps falling behind. The game, and Florence herself, can't move on until she intentionally lets go and allows Krish to disappear. We can try to hold on to people or to memories of people already gone, but this will only keep us from moving forward and healing. Florence struggles to move past this breakup. Now on her own, her world is once again gray and dull. After some time has passed, though, she uncovers the painting set again, a flash of vibrance in the drab world, and decides to try it. She does well. Her art gains attention on social media, she sells prints online, and later has an exhibition in a gallery dedicated to her work. Color returns to her world as she finds fulfillment with herself, with her own works and projects. The activities that she and Krish did can bring her happiness again even without him. She cooks and travels with friends and family, she quits her office job. Her life is fulfilling not in spite of her relationship's disillusion, but in part because of it. Florence may not have her happy present life if not for the joy of the relationship, the pain of the breakup, and the personal growth found through knowing and being known intimately by another person. The people in our lives shape how we live and what we do. Even after they're gone, the things they leave behind, their teapots and toasters, their hobbies, interests, mannerisms, the memories of our time together affect our thoughts and actions. Florence depicts a romance pulling someone out of tedium, but this can only ever be temporary. No one person can make you truly happy. It's only once she's able to give meaning to her life herself, to pursue the projects that satisfy her on her own terms, that her life is what she wants it to be. We can and must give ourselves meaning, because if we're unhappy with ourselves, we'll be unhappy with someone else too. Florence, along with the other games mentioned, are existential in this way. They share a common core with Jean-Paul Sartre's philosophy, namely that we cannot forever avoid our understanding that our purpose in life is what we make it, that we must find our own meaning and fulfillment. It will not simply be given to us. It can be a struggle, Contentment is often hard fought and hard won, but this burden of discovering our essence is necessarily the base of our existence. I often struggle to tell people how I feel. It's not because I refuse to open up or think I have to be tough or anything, but because I have trouble understanding how I feel myself. I've dealt with intermittent depression and apathy for a long time. One thing that does help me understand myself and gives me purpose is having a project. As with Florence, I need something to do, something to work on that I care about. Whether that's making music, taking photos, running tabletop games, writing poetry, making video essays, whatever. If I don't have this, I sink and I can become numb to the people and world around me. Of course, the infernal bargain here is that while these projects are meaningful to me, they take time and focus away from other things and other people that I love. I hope if you're watching this and you feel like you're sinking into the gray waves, that you know you're not alone and that it can get better. I believe in you. You just have to keep climbing. I know it's painful in the moment, but there will be a time not too long from now when it won't hurt so much, when it will seem like this happened to a different person in a half-remembered dream. And in a way, it did. You're not the same person you were before, or the same person now that you will be then. The people around us shape so much of our lives, and when we get close, our identities tangle. Then when we split in our own directions, it's so hard to separate what's you and what's them, what's important to take and what you can let go. We're constantly evolving, either growing together or growing apart. But the things they leave behind after the break may someday be a sweet reminder of the past. The color will come back, even if they don't. Now close your eyes. Leave the leaf. Take my hand. It's time to go.